I just want to make myself very, very crystal clear. This video, and this is just specifically to YouTube because y'all like to act funny. At no point in time in my critiquing of this video or the listening of this audio am I in any way, shape, or form trying to formulate any type of hatred towards a certain group of people. This is a simple conversation. It's a very simple and crystal clear opinion about a topic that is being talked about by an African man, specifically pertaining to Africa, and the opinions of a Black American man and what it is that he is able to see in America.
You need people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
Listen closely.
America right now comes to
what this man
Tanzania,
is saying.
comes to Ghana, comes to Zambia with 16 million. And guess what? 16 million only for Zambia. The 16 million, ask me, what is it for?
What is it for?
For human rights. Across the river, China and Russia coming to South Africa. Ask me for what?
For what?
For a military training and skills sharing of security. So the Americans are more interested in a transgender, homosexual agenda around the world. They will invest their money and give you money to protect human rights. Russia and China are coming with weapons and militarization strategies so that we can protect ourselves. So I want to say this very loud and clear to the Americans. Continue on your transgender agenda. Stay there. Leave us to do politics on the other side. Because what we need right now is not a minority human rights activation. What we need is a societal transformation. And for you as Americans to think that we really envy that when you have an anti-lesbian, anti-gay, LGBT principle, then tourists would drop. Let me correct that once and for all, Sbu. And cut and clip this, and it must be loud and clear. Are you saying to me that all the tourists are gay? And when you hear that this is a non-gay zone, tourism will suffer? Question number one. Question number two. Are you saying that we don't have a right to expressing ourselves as Africans? Question number three. If democracy means majority rules and majority votes against a principle, then why won't you allow that to become law? Are you saying the minority must manage the majority or the majority must manage the minority? Then if that whole ideology is wrong, then take democracy in a nice black dustbin bag and throw it outside. Because what you are telling us is by the people, for the people, with the people, and all those slogans you hear, what democracy represents. If we are 10 in the room and 9 people say no, and one person says yes, democracy says you go with the majority. If we say we want to make Africa democratic, and the demographics of our democracy says no, then why do you philosophically want to manipulate the will of the majority to favor the will of the minority? Then this is where it really gets confusing to me. Because you're selling me one thing on one. I understand this democracy because it is based on the principle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When it comes to practice, no, you can't practice it like that. Then what do you want? Do you want democracy? You want anarchy? You want indigenous governance systems? You want meritocracy? Maybe let's find another way of governing ourselves. But the ideology of democracy being founded on majority rule does not count. Because the rule that runs the South African constitution right now is not majority count. I will go on record for being on your show and saying it loud and clear without mixing words. Put 100 people on an island and lock them away from everybody. Put 100 people on an island who are heterosexual. Those are homosexual. Come back after 50 or 20 or 30 years. On that island, you'll find graves with no living being. On this island, you'll find 10,000 people growing and exploring and moving. Having said that, we as a society, particularly as African society, we also as traditional people have a right to our self-preservation and continuity as a people. Alternative lifestyles must be practiced where they must be practiced, but the main agenda of societal drive must be left to the right, because even those that are on the left come from that. I don't know if that makes sense. The conversation that we had for the same-sex marriages was very tricky for me, because it did not seek to address the core issue. Are we saying this is what the people want? Or are we saying this is what the international community wants? Point number one. Point number two, in the event that I decide as a heterosexual that I want to bring up my children in a heterosexual way, why does the homosexual want to stand on the path of my own children and how I want to institutionalize them, and then pollute them with what they want? If you want to pollute these children, make your own. Why come to the heterosexual and then dictate the ways of the homosexual? So who is got the right this time? Are you saying the rights rely with the homosexual, or the rights rely with the heterosexual? The balance needs to be found right there, that every citizen has got the right to life and decide how they want to run their lives and how they want to bring up their children, etc. And so ultimately we might end up with an Urania. Let's create a state where this can happen there. And those who want to live in this other space, they can move into that space. And we are free to choose to change.
It's a very deeper conversation. And also, especially,
and we're giving it the time it demands. We're giving it the depth of thought that it demands. So that in the midst of just saying human rights, we don't become emotional over protect gay rights, protect heterosexual rights. Because when you protect homosexual rights, you also need to become respectful of the heterosexual. And when you're promoting heterosexual, you also need to protect the homosexual.
Lenin stated these things: "Give me just one generation of youth, and I'll transform the whole world." He later stated, "Give me 4 years to teach the children, and the seed I have sown will never be uprooted." Later he stated, "Destroy the family, you destroy the country. The way to crush the bourgeoisie is to grind them between the milestone of taxation and inflation." Definition of bourgeoisie: number 1, middle class; number 2, in Marxist theory, the social group opposed to the proletariat in the class struggle; number 3, properly the French middle class, but often applied to the middle classes of any country, especially those depending on trade; number 4, the French middle class, particularly such as are concerned in or dependent on trade; number 5, a class of citizens who were wealthier members of the third estate; number 6, the capitalist class; number 7, the social class between the lower and the upper classes. So to the black community, to a lot of black people out there, if you're old enough, you've probably heard your parents or your grandparents use the terminology bourgeoisie, meaning the uppity black people that feel that they have a little bit more money than everybody else, so that they can look down upon, they can treat you a certain type of way, talk to you a certain type of way, all of that stuff. So it's funny looking at, in a sense, a definition of a word, and then you're going back in the recesses of your mind and you hear a lot of things that people were saying, and you're looking at this definition here, and it's like, wow. So it's like this whole time we were, in a sense, using something, and we didn't, in a sense, know specifically where it came from. Anyways, like I said, it's just me. I could be wrong, but I'm just saying I found it a little bit funny. So this is why I've talked about this so much in previous videos, right? This is Africa, right? And then next to Africa, you see Egypt. You can clearly see that Africa and Egypt are a part of the exact, same piece, right? It's just some areas just so happen to have broken off waterways, came through and eroded away the rest of it. But you have some people there that say that, hey, Egypt is not a part of, Africa and yada, 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 all this other type of stuff, right? So within that connection, that little bridge directly up there, you see where the location of Tel Aviv is, right? So this is when the critical thinking comes in. Why is it that the United States government,
the world? What I can tell you about steps the United States might take in response is that we are undertaking a review of our relationship with Uganda in light of this decision.
But Museveni remains unperturbed. The outsiders cannot dictate to us. This is our country, this is our society, this is our future. It is not anybody's future. And the outsiders will have to live with us, or if they don't want, they take their aid and we shall. Uganda is very rich, we don't need aid. In fact, aid is part of the problem.
Would decide that they want to go over to a whole nother continent, deal with other countries, and they specifically want to push a certain thing directly on that demographic, right? Again, this is a whole nother continent, right? A whole nother place, right? Got leaders all over these countries, right? But yet, for whatever it is, the United States is like, hey, you guys don't want to support, this agenda. You don't want to support these rights or whatever it is. It looks like we're going to have to pull back our money up until you actually do what it is that we want you to do, because that's what the United States government is stating. If you don't support what it is that we want you to support and do, we are not going to give you free money. That sounds like an agenda to me. I'm not sure if people know what an agenda actually is, but that 100% is an agenda to me, because you heard what it is that the White House stated, and they vocally stated. It's like, hey, after Uganda made that announcement, we're rethinking where our stance is, with them. But you're not rethinking your stance with, other nations, and you know how it is that they treat Africans and black people. It'd have been different if the United States would have came over to, different areas in Africa, and they were like, hey, we're going to help you guys get away from the British rule. We're going to try to put you guys on a corrective path that is for you. Right? It would have been great if the United States government would have actually done that, but they're not going to do that, because that, again, is not beneficial for them. The United States government is here to put people in debt and to set forth many different agendas and all this other type of stuff. And they set this under the banner of democracy, right? Democracy comes with a field of things. Of course, some people can say that there are some good things there, just like everything else. There are some good things there. But we have to look at the other things that people are trying to specifically push on a whole nother group of people. So again, I'm just asking, who is this realistically about? Are you trying to do this for, the adults that are already there, or are you trying to go and, put this out there for somebody else to basically pick up and march with? Like I said, it's critical thinking. It's just a observation. It's a simple question that anybody could directly go out there and answer, or give an answer to, if they would like to. And again, I ask this question. This is a second question for people to think about. Why would the United States government need to push this on any of the nations within Africa? Why would they need to come to a whole nother continent in order to bring this there, if you already have a place that is, in a sense, a part of Africa that already has this there? This is the Mecca of Meccas. This is the Mecca of Meccas for the gay community. If that exists, why would you again need to bring this to a whole nother continent, where the group of people are like, hey, this is not something that we're for. This is not something that we are about. We have this certain type of belief. We have this certain type of way of life that we basically go to. We're not in for the indoctrination of another nation's belief. Like I said, because this is what you're looking at. You're looking at the United States and probably others trying to force their beliefs and their ideologies on this African nation, on this African continent, on these African countries. Again, I'm just asking why. And again, I'm going to leave you with something that was stated. I don't have a problem with anything this man said, and I am trans. However, people have to realize what is being pushed by the government versus what is actually being pushed by your average LGBT person. LGBT people look up and see the media pushing for things that we never asked for. Then the public gets mad at us as a whole. We do not control how we are represented. The elites do. The media does. All I ask is people stop assuming we all condone the same things when it comes to children and politics.